Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville and another in my series of Why This Watch. Today, why have I got the Seiko SBDC139, the Prospex diver version of the 140th anniversary limited edition releases Seiko did. This one based on the 62 mass watch case. One of the hottest watches on YouTube right now. It seems like I can't turn WatchTube on without seeing a review, an opening, an impression of this watch. Which begs the question, what the hell am I doing with this watch? Look at my channel name, Not So Obvious Watches, and yet here I am with one of the most obvious watches going around. If you've watched my channel, you'll know I collect slowly. I don't like flipping. I only buy keepers. I sit on buying decisions for months, years before I finally pull the trigger on a watch. So what am I doing with a very current limited edition in such a short time frame? Those are great questions and I'll talk about them during the video. Okay, so let's get into the first thing. Yeah, I like to think I'm me. I'm not everyone else. And I like to think that my watch collection, being a reflection of me, won't be a reflection of everyone else's watch collection. That it won't be made up of watches you see 1,000 times every day on Instagram. But this is the power of self-reflection, of looking in on yourself and realizing what your ideas mean about how you're likely to think and how that can lead you to self-sabotage. And that's something I've done very carefully in this watch hobby to avoid, as I said, that idea of self-sabotage, of excluding watches from my collecting, excluding things that would make me really happy on the basis of some rubbishy idea that I need to be different to everyone else. And the first thing is, that is something I have carefully, consciously, and deliberately done with respect to Seiko. On one hand, they're a brand I'm kind of programmed not to like. They're big, they're well known, they're really popular. If you've got one of their watches, everyone else has got one of their watches. But I've kind of, by taking out my cognitive bias and sort of filtering for it, I'm able to see this is a brand I love, with a story I love, with watches I love, with a very particular sort of point of view that really appeals to me. And to the point where I've now made the decision, I will consciously collect Seiko Prospex dive watches. And it's that conscious decision to move past what would be my unconscious bias that means, yeah, in this corner of my watch collecting, I buy watches which are painfully obvious and the same as everyone else. Okay, so the next bit, how did I end up a guy who buys watches really slowly and really does not want to get forced into flipping a watch because I made a poor decision in buying it? How do I end up with a limited edition that was released only a little while ago? And maybe I'm going to say something here which is really unpopular, but I'm in this position because I think Seiko does limited editions perfectly. I love how Seiko does their limited and special editions, because what it does is it means all the FOMO, all the rush, all the hurry is taken out of it. These are the important things about Seiko limited editions. One, they are super common. If Seiko releases a watch, you can take it to the bank that there will be a special edition or a limited edition version of that watch. From the moment Seiko introduced the first 62 mass inspired case a couple of years ago, I knew, or that watch was on my radar. About 2 years ago, I knew I wanted one of those watches. I also knew that there would be a limited edition version that I wanted. So about 2 years ago, I put aside money, time, emotional space to buy the limited edition that I knew would be coming when it eventually turned up. So when it turned up, I was ready. The other thing is Seiko flags their limited editions a couple of months out. So they're not like, they don't pop it on a Friday and say, congratulations, we're opening on Monday, and have everything sold out by 9:10 on Monday morning. They tell you a couple of months out, this watch is coming, and you can prepare yourself, again, mentally, emotionally, and financially for it. So given that I'd already known that there was a 62 mass limited edition coming, and there will be one that I'm gonna like, then they gave me sure enough, it happened, and they gave me a couple of months notice that it was coming. I was able to prep for it. And the last thing that Seiko do that I absolutely love is that their limited editions aren't small. It's not like 150 pieces that sell out in 15 minutes. This one's 6,000 pieces. That gives me plenty of time to sort of think about this even after the watch has come out. Gives me plenty of time to see the first one or two unboxings, get a chance to maybe even see it in the metal before I pull the trigger. In this particular case, I got the opportunity to do all of those things and then finally commit to buying it. So ultimately, why do I like Seiko special limited editions? They do so many of them that you can bank on them. They give you plenty of warning that they're coming, and then they make them in really big runs so that they're easy enough to get. Now, some of you will hate Seiko limited editions for exactly the reasons I love them. But I love them because it means I can get watches. If you don't like it because it makes it hard for you to get a watch, then that sounds a bit hair undershirty, self-flagellatory to me. I like the idea of companies doing things to make me happy, not make me miserable. Okay, so that's all background. That's kind of context. Doesn't go to the heart of why do I have this particular watch. Okay, I can tell you why I've got this watch really simply. Just look at it. It is beautiful. Now, I'm not going to say the watch is perfect. No watch is. And there are certain stars of the show that are clearly doing most of the heavy lifting here. And for me, that's the case, the bezel, and the dial. Seiko cases are always good. They always punch several levels above their weight. And in this particular case, the 62 mass case is just to die for. It is such a good inherent design. The shaping, the sculpting, the finishing is all stellar, and frankly puts watches literally 10 times the price of this to shame. That case is gorgeous, and it works beautifully with the bezel. Now, Seiko does this weird thing, and I don't even know exactly what it is. I think what they're doing is putting several coats of essentially clear coat lacquer over a colored steel dial and bezel, sorry. And what that does is it creates some really interesting and quite frankly weird color shifting and an odd depth to the bezel, which I just love. I find kind of mesmerizing. Depending on the light, this watch bezel can shift from a kind of light petrol greeny blue through to quite a deep dark inky black. And that ambiguity and complexity and playfulness really brings just a sense of fun and constant wonder with this bezel and ultimately with the watch. It also plays beautifully with the next big star of the show, the dial. Like the bezel, the dial has this kind of chameleon effect. What the dial is a very light silver with an incredibly subtle sunburst finish. What that does is it means that depending on the light, the dial will vary from a really clear, stark, brilliant white through a kind of silvery shimmer, ultimately ending up in a kind of steely gray in some lights. And again, this interplay of light and shade, creating this constantly changing dial and bezel interface, makes this watch just so fun, so cool, and just so goddamn beautiful that it's got to be mine. And that's why the moment I saw it, I knew it was on my list. I saw one in the metal and I had it ordered a couple of hours later. apart from the big stars of the show and the things that made me buy it, everything else is good. Nothing else is really spectacular. Nothing else is really terrible. They're all, whether it's the rest of the dial furniture, like the indices or the hands or the bracelet, it's all kind of they're all just doing their job. They're like backup singers. They're not there to overshadow the stars of the show, just there to carry their weight and and carry the tune. And that's basically what they do. If you're after more detail on things like lume, bracelet, bezel alignment, movement accuracy, I'm not your guy. Frankly, once I saw the real heavy lifters of here, the bezel, dial and case, I didn't really care about any of that stuff, except to the point that it doesn't turn me off the watch. I would say it doesn't turn me off the watch. If you care more about this, go check out other YouTubers. There's other people who will cover that stuff to death. Okay, so that's it. That's why I've got this watch. First off, the circumstances are right. I don't allow myself to be limited by my desire to somehow be different, and I'm happy buying something that is patently obvious when it makes me happy to do so. Secondly, the way Seiko does their limited editions means that you don't have to leap. You can walk your way into these, which is exactly what I did. And thirdly, the watch is just drop dead gorgeous. It is one of the best looking watches released by any maker at any price point this year. And ultimately, those three reasons are why this is my watch.